So my personal belief is that credit cards are one of the most important things in our world today, and when used and leveraged correctly, you can create massive amounts of value in life-changing vacations that you can be taking abroad or even just domestically for pennies on the dollar. And I don't know about you, but I want more experiences and more vacations than less vacations, and credit cards are the ticket to that. And I've learned over the past 6 years of being in the points and miles game, I've accumulated well over 1 million credit card points without referrals, all with an income of less than $30,000. And I think that that is probably the majority of people out there, the average man. And if I've been able to create life-changing vacations in just this short 6-year span of being in the game, then you certainly can too, and I want that for you as well. So one thing that I've learned over the years is that I've made a lot of mistakes, and if you don't have to make those mistakes, well, you can enhance your experiences in day-to-day life and not have to foot the bill of all these different credit cards and annual fees and all these different things, and get at least 90% of all the lessons and experiences without all of those scars. And one thing I've been able to do to learn a little bit faster than most other people is I've been able to leverage other people's time. I'm talking people who are in this game for 20, 30, even 40 years of traveling and using points a mile to the best of their ability and learning the lessons from them, so this way I can jumpstart my career in the credit card points a miles game. And one way I've been able to do that is with a podcast, and I actually have a list right here. I've been able to speak to over 40 people in this space of all the most experienced people in the points a miles game, and today I want to talk through every single person that I've ever spoken to, the 42 episodes I did on 42 different people who have experienced way more than me, and go through one lesson I learned from each person from each podcast. And this way, by hearing this, maybe you can jumpstart your career and learn a little bit faster, just like I have in this entire game. And so, starting with the first person I ever had on my podcast, happened to be actually my best friend, which is CalbyNg. And the one lesson I really learned from him is that, well, a lot of people don't know, but from that first podcast, he actually mentioned he was in a decent amount of credit card debt. I forget the actual amount, but it might have been between $5,000 and $10,000. I think as he was going through college, he was supplementing all of his, food and I guess housing at that time, all through credit cards. And of course, he can correct me if I'm wrong. But he did accumulate a good amount of debt, which he felt very bad about. And there came a time where he realized that if you're a little bit crafty and if you think about things in a little bit of a different way, you can pay off that debt a lot faster than you might actually imagine. But then beyond that is one lesson that I got from him, which is if you have an opportunity to be able to pay off debt, you want to take advantage of that as soon as possible. And what happened with him was he actually had a house, and he was able to sell that house and take the proceeds after I think just a year of appreciation and pretty much wipe out all of his credit card debt, so this way he can start back at zero. And for that is really powerful. And I think a lot of people, myself included, if we've had these debts maybe on their cards or even our cars or, home loans, and maybe we come into a sum of money, whether it be maybe a bonus from a job or the sale of a house, or maybe you're actually just doing a personal loan because the percentages is lower than maybe the credit card, interest and APR. But the idea is actually taking that large sum of money and deciding to tackle that debt as soon as possible, because the longer that debt accumulates, the more you become accustomed to it and the more you make it okay to continue building up upon that debt, and then you start the cycle of never getting out of credit card debt. And he wouldn't be where he is today if he didn't take those proceeds and pay off his credit card debt. He didn't take those proceeds and buy a car, right? He didn't do anything frivolous. He paid off his credit card debt, and for that I think is very noble, and that is why he is now staying at awesome properties. And actually, we went to DC together recently, and he stayed at a $400, $500 hotel. He wouldn't have been able to do that if he was in that same situation as he was in the past. So that was one of the lessons I learned from him, and he's a great guy, and he has a great channel as well. And everybody's channel will be linked in the description as well. The next person I had on my podcast was my good friend LalitDevraj, who also has a channel. And all these guys pretty much have a channel, most of all, maybe 99% of them. And Lalit is a friend that I met online through all this, much like all these guys. And I actually met him more recently in person. He came to my state of South Carolina, and we had some good chats here and there. And the one thing he taught me was that points and miles don't actually only have to be for these vacations, these excursions, these luxury experiences, right? They can be used for day-to-day life in work. And his story is that he used to be a professional beatboxer, and he won I think national championships in India, and I think he used to go to Korea, and he would go to, I think it was Canada, and he had all these different places that he had to travel to on his dime because beatboxing at that time was very, very small, and he was coordinating a lot of events. So he was able to do two things. He was able to leverage all of his credit card points for all these travels, so this way he can fly and lodge, stay at hotels as cheaply as possible while he's pursuing this passion, pursuing this dream of beatboxing, in which he's able to actually do these things as cheaply as possible, so this way he can pursue his dream, right? That's the idea, and I think that's amazing. Another thing he was able to do was his knowledge he was able to leverage into earning more points for him than the average person, because every other person that he was managing, because he knew more about the business of beatboxing than most other people, is he was able to take some of the champions from Korea and some of the champions from Canada, and he was able to add them as authorized users because maybe they weren't able or eligible to get credit cards in the first place, but he was able to get, American credit cards and what have you. And he was able to give them authorized users cards that they can then spend on their flights and their hotels, and he will earn all of the points back on that, and he will just handle maybe booking of the flights and booking of the hotels. All of the things that he learned just by being in the game, he was able to use as a business for himself to not only help his friends and help these fellow champions also go and do beatboxing tournaments, because they wouldn't be able to get there otherwise, but then him also earning points on the back end by them using the authorized users cards. And he still has their cards to this day, even though they're all expired. So I thought it was incredibly eye-opening that you can use all these points and miles to leverage them to pursue passions and dreams going forward for pennies on the dollar. And part of that too, and another lesson that I learned, was that in the corporate world, when you're dealing with some of these events and you have to set up networking events and these different areas where you have to rent space for these events, you want to look more professional. And he said that he would strictly go with American Express cards, so the platinum cards, the gold cards, and Delta cards and what have you, because American Express to all of those event planners and those networking events all seem to be way more higher level and higher status. So when he was able to show people authorized user cards at American Express, these businesses took him way more seriously and allowed him the entry to be able and be eligible to set up these events for beatboxing. So he's a real trailblazer in the beatboxing space, and I love that he was able to leverage credit card points and miles just to leverage that dream. And I think that's really powerful. So that's Lalit. He also has a channel, link below. Next person, my boy Chad's Money Minutes. So Chad's Money Minutes, this is so Chad is a guy I've known for a while now. I would say at least a year, maybe a year and a half, and we linked up pretty early on, and we did a lot of live streams together, and we had a lot of good experiences and a lot of fun. Or one thing that I learned from Chad was that he has a real deep understanding of not only just credit cards, but every avenue of finance in the first place. I mean, if you talk to him about credit card points, cool. And the back end of credit cards, cool. Stock market, real estate, leveraging money, and understanding the perceptions of money, which was very eye-opening for me, and why he touted so hard in Earn and Burn in our first podcast interview. We did a lot of them, but the first one kind of stuck with me because the first one, he really solidified the fact of earn and burn to me, which is the practice of earning all these credit card points and miles. Like, I accumulated over 400,000 Amex points in a few years span, and I never spent them until recently. And he really tried to urge me to start using them a little bit more because, well, much like the dollar and inflation, these points and miles are a currency, and these currencies are getting devalued over time like we see year after year. And what he really stressed to me is, well, maybe tomorrow might not even be guaranteed, right? It might not be. And if you can have an experience now, and you can use these points for outsized returns and outsized experiences, and you can do it, you might as well do it, because if you wait for tomorrow, well, tomorrow might not ever come on the health side, right? You want to make sure you're healthy to enjoy all these things. But then, too, if they get devalued and there's inflation and these points are worth nothing, well, then you lost your opportunity in the first place. So I like the idea, and what I learned from Chad is that take the guaranteed trip versus the maybe tomorrow. And I think that's really powerful and something I've implemented in my day-to-day life. And I think it's super important and something that most people should think about if they're planning out trips for years and years. And I get it if you have like a big trip plan, you're like, I just need like another 100K to book everything in this 2-week excursion. Cool, I'm with that. But for me and for some other people, maybe want to do just weekend trips or just a 3-day stay somewhere, a fly to this state, for a few days. Cool. Then you can leverage and use, I'm going to keep using this word leverage, but use these points and miles for smaller stays and more often, have more stays more often. So I think that's a really powerful message. I guess one other thing I learned from Chad is that you can be pretty unique, and he usually has these, he tests things out a lot. Like he was the first person I ever heard actually able to use the Chase Sapphire Preferred online category, right? The 3x back that everyone's upset about, the online grocery category. Like, why can't we have a normal grocery? Well, he found out that if you like preload your Sapphire Preferred on your Publix account, and you actually, Publix, the supermarket, and you buy with that card, I think via the online app, like you scan it in store, you could buy all the groceries in store and it still will count towards the online grocery because it's attached to your online account. And that was eye-opening for a lot of people. And, I always remembered that. I haven't done it, but I always remembered he was first to that. And also, more recently, the Hilton gift cards. It was like the Hilton Surpass had a revamp recently back in October. And I think he was one of the first people that I saw that was able to buy Hilton gift cards with the new Hilton credit, and it actually coded towards the Hilton credit. So theoretically, with the Hilton Surpass $150 annual fee, you can buy $50 gift cards every single quarter, and then you just have this stack of gift cards that you can use towards a hotel stay at checkout, and I have some videos on it. So he taught me to earn and burn, and to test things out every now and again, because you never know what will work. So that is what I will learn from Trad, and he also has an amazing channel. The next person I had on here was actually my good friend Gabe. My good friend Gabe, who is actually a paranormal investigator here in Greenville, South Carolina. So if you come to Greenville, ask for Gabe, and he owns Greenville Ghost Tours, and I met him on a ghost tour at the time, and we somehow hit it off, and we ended up talking credit card points and miles, because he actually is now, having met me and kind of learned more about the points and miles game, I realized he's actually been able to leverage a lot of Hilton cards. Like, he got the Hilton business card, and now he's getting like Inc business cards, and he's able to take all those points, and again, much like Lalit from before, take all these points and book haunted hotels. That's right. Like, he helped me on my video I did at the Mills House in Charleston. It's one of the most haunted hotels in Charleston. And he helped me with that, but he wanted to conduct his own investigation, but, maybe he didn't want to foot the bill of $300. Like, he saw I only paid, what was it, maybe 80,000 Hilton points. He didn't want to pay $300 to $500 to stay there, but with credit card points and miles, now he can. So one thing that he taught me too, much like Lalit, is that you're never really too late to get into this game, and even if you're a complete novice, you can start out, because he has this business of Greenville Ghost Tours, get a Hilton business card, get a Chase Inc business card, use those points and miles for his passions, and his passions just happen to be staying at haunted hotels, and I love that, because now he's going to get to go to more haunted hotels, and he can do more videos and more, like poltergeists, and, go through these hauntings and record it all on video, and he can grow his business, again, just all stemming from credit card points and miles, paying pennies on the dollar. So Gabe is a great guy, and I always have a good time with him, which he also has a channel as well. Next person is Manny Covington. Manny. He is one of my favorite people in this entire game. He is one of the best people I know, and I love the time that I got to know him, not only over the video when I was doing a podcast with him, but when I met him in Vegas. For those of you who may not know, I actually got married in Las Vegas, and it was a part of the Greater Credit Card Creator Meetup, and he actually, after we got married, personally gave me and my wife some gift cards to some restaurants. He was like, I didn't have anything else, but I had these. Here, you can have them. I didn't know you were getting married anyway. I would have gotten you a better gift, but he gave us a bunch of gift cards, and it really meant a lot. And he's always been there if you ever had to message him for something, and he's just a ball of happiness. And one thing that he taught me, and he's very young. He's, I believe, just 22 now. He might have had a birthday. I think he was 21 at the time. He might be 22. I might be wrong. But one thing that he taught me was that he was able to go to, I think, was it 30 states? I think he went to, it might have been 20 or 30 states. I'm forgetting now. But 20 or 30 states by the time he was 20, 21 years old, and he was able to travel to all of these different states. And what I learned from him is that you can just book a couple days stay. You can just go book a 1 day stay in a new state, in an unfamiliar area, and you can do it solo. He took all of his points and miles that he earned over the years from 18 to 21, and he went and just, like, I don't even know where, I can't even remember where he went, but maybe just the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin one day, right? Or he just went to Chicago one day, or he just went to Nashville one day. I don't really know. But the point is, he was able to do like 1 day stay or fly here for a day and go solo and just meet people. And he really solidified the fact that you can just take the flight for 1 day. It doesn't have to be this big important thing that you're really worried about. You're like, oh, is this going to be, the be all end all, be all end all trip for the whole year? Like, I can just do 1 day this weekend. Next weekend, let's go to a different state. Next weekend, go to a different state. And you can do that. And also that he went to like random restaurants or maybe random bars and just did some tours and stuff. And he would just meet people along the way and just, learn from other people and just learning a perspective that is not your own from wherever you grew up. And I really love that. And he just shares positivity wherever he goes. He's always smiling, and I really appreciate him for all of those facts. And I've taken that to heart as well, is to take the trip even if it's 1 day, because if you can, you might as well, and have a good time with the people that you meet along those travels. And he has some good stories with that, so check that out if you want to hear some of those stories. Next is the Wandering Doc. Wandering Doc, my man. He's one of the few non-YouTubers in this game, but somebody that I've spoken to and I would consider a friend over the past couple of years of being in this game. He was actually there for my first ever live stream I ever did on this channel, and he's still here day to day, and he heckles me every now and again. But the main thing I learned from him, and he's a very interesting guy, he has been able to effectively retire himself 20 years early by going against the grain and everything that most people think is the right way to do things, right? Do the 9 to 5 job, or you know invest your money in certain ways, or you have to live in a particular area. He found a way that he can effectively leave his where he was living at that time, which I think it was like $3,500 every single month, and just go live in much cheaper places. So he's been able to actually, and we talked about it on the podcast, but he is literally a wandering doctor, and he does some stuff in that field, and he's been able to travel to all these different destinations. Like, he's in Bali, I think, at the moment of the time of recording, or maybe I'm wrong. He is in Singapore. I think he was in the Philippines for like months at a time, and he's been able to maybe take that $3,500 a month and spread that out. And instead of a month, he can get 3 months in a different country or 4 months in a different country, and the cost of living is low and low and low. And all the while be able to retire a lot earlier because of all the investments he made along the way up until, like, I guess his mid-30s, something like that. And how he leverages his points and miles is that, well, he'll cover the cash side on where he's staying in these particular countries, but then he'll go and use that as a jumping point to different countries. Like, if you're already in in Asia, it's not very hard to take a flight to other areas of Asia. Like, I think he likes to go to Vietnam, he goes to the Philippines, and you can do these travels back and forth and use those points and miles for those flights and use them for all the hotel stays. And he is a man of service. He really loves having the highest level service possible, and he also was in the service as well, so we salute you, Doc. But he also he loves the highest level of service, so high-end Hyatt hotels, Waldorf Astorias, and like Cabo, he talks about as one of the best hotels he's been to. So he kind of challenged me to think about life in a different way, that you don't have to just live it in one particular way. You can just live life on your own terms, as if there are no rules. And as long as you were diligent along the way, and you were able to even, again, leverage your money in investments for real estate and for stocks and all these different things, and if you have that fairly covered and is consistent over time, and if you're free to do so, but you don't have a family already, or even if your family is good with it, you can do what he did and maybe work remote, and you can live in other countries if the job actually allows you to do it. Or if you're already well off and you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, I mean, what's stopping you, like him, from living in all these different countries for pennies on the dollar, for food, for lodging, all these different things, and just having amazing experiences with the people that you love, or people that you will love, and the people that you meet in those different countries as well. So he challenges me, and I think everybody in that podcast, to think outside the box and to live a life worth living, is the way he sees fit, and I guess the way you see fit as well, whoever's watching. So absolutely appreciate Doc for that. Next is Sledge, my boy Sledge. We all know Sledge. He's also one of my favorite people in the space. He will. He was one of the first people that I had also on the podcast here, and I was there for his first video, and I was telling him in the comments, I was like, make some videos, because you know what you're doing. And he has so much experience, and not only just coming from really, is so to speak, a rags to riches as far as like heavy credit card debt, and he was very open about it on both podcasts we had, and he has his own podcast as well, going from high levels of credit card debt and just being frivolous with the spending, and just running up the debts like a lot of people do in the world, like we've all done at some point, and again changing his mindset to being able to take the money that he was making in his day-to-day life, pay down all of those debts, and be able to eventually come out of that, which a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't come out of massive amount of credit card debt to net zero, and then now to where he's able to travel like crazy, and he's going to a lot of Caribbean countries he likes to go to, and he likes to do a lot of stays in Florida, and all these different things. So if it's one thing I learned from him too, is that at least the points of mile side, because there's also a relationship side, but the points of mile side is that yes, anybody, including how he did it, go from massive amounts of credit card debt to the highest level of luxury, and he's been able to do it. And it took some time. He made it through, and he's very, very happy today. But moreover than that, one thing I really learned from him is on the relationship side. He and I really talked heavily about how to make sure that you are the happiest version of you in your relationship. And I remember him speaking about one thing that really stuck with me in this podcast, was that make sure you listen to your partner. And I know a lot of people say that, right? We know, like, listen to your partner, but the way he said it, which was like, hear them out no matter what is going on. If there's a fight, a disagreement, an argument, make sure you hear the person, because maybe, and in his words, maybe they don't hear you in that moment, but at least they heard it, and you listen to it, and you will be, and they will be, your partner, thinking about it when they lay their head at night. When they're sleeping, they're going to recount that entire argument, and they're going to think about what actually went wrong. And you want to feel heard in a relationship. And usually when you have these fights is when the other person doesn't feel heard or doesn't feel validated. So what I learned from him is that to make sure that you keep your ears open, even in the highest level fight that you could ever be in with your significant other. Because if you don't listen to them, well, then nothing can change. And if there is a fight, is because there is a friction between you two. There's something that is not meshing between you two. And usually that means that there has to be some sort of a compromise or a common ground, or just something that needs to be heard so that someone can change their behavior for the future. And I've really taken that to heart, because I've used that in my own life when my wife and I are maybe arguing about a particular thing. Like, more specifically, there was a time recently where I'm really working hard on this channel. I'm working really, really hard, and I want this to be like the thing. I've kind of stepped back away from any other jobs that I've ever been doing since being down here in South Carolina. So I've gone full in on YouTube, because there's nothing I care more about. There's nothing I care more about than doing this and talking to everybody and creating this community and just having outside experiences. That's why I started the video like, credit cards are one of the most important things in the world, because it unifies the world. If we could all travel, we're all unified, and we could all learn the perspectives of another. So there came to a time recently where I was editing just so much, just every day, 10 hours a day, constantly doing it, and I wasn't dedicating enough time to her time, and what I call girly time, right? And that is, going out to the restaurant, doing those different things, or just going to the bookstore, because she loves bookstores, like little things like that I wasn't thinking about, because my mind is so focused on make a new video, make more money, so this way this can be the main thing that we can live off of going forward, because I just care so much about it, and I will do everything in my power to make it work. So one thing I had to learn was that not only did I not heed the signs, but eventually got to a point where it was like she was very upset with me, and we were like, I get it, you're working hard, but I need you as well. So it gets me a little emotional, because I've since fixed it, and I've been able to maybe be a lot more efficient with my time, and I've been able to record like this in a quicker way, or use the MacBook now that I have for quicker editing and quicker filming, and being more efficient with my time and editing faster, and maybe doing less editing, and making sure I could dedicate more time to her. But still getting in, my 40, 50, whatever hours I'm spending on the channel every single week, or maybe even more, who knows. So I think it's really important to listen to the other person and to heed their advice, because more often than not, your spouse does have intuition and a perspective that you don't, and they have an outside perspective that you are blind to. So it's good to heed their advice and to heed what is going on. And that is one thing I learned from Sledge, is to listen. So this way you can learn from it, and you can fix the problem in the future before it becomes a problem. So now I'm much more happier in this space where I can produce a lot of videos, maybe a little bit less editing, hopefully still high value content, God willing. I'm sorry if you don't like this. Um, but in this way I could still have my outcome of my goal, but then also spend enough time with her. So thank you, Sledge, for the advice on relationships more so. Next up is Woozy. Everybody knows and loves Woozy, right? He's in the comment sections, a lot of Discords, one of the few non-YouTubers in this entire video, and I had the pleasure of actually meeting with him. He met with me in my home state, and we actually did an in-real-life podcast together where we talked about a lot of different things. But the one thing he really wanted to drive home, the one lesson I really learned from him, was he thought that credit card space as a whole underestimated or underappreciated the idea of addiction, and more specifically, credit card addiction, and the idea of signing up for more and more cards because, well, I don't even want to spend money unless it's going towards a card that has a minimum spend requirement, so this way I can get the welcome offer. And I was guilty of this pretty much up until this day. It's like, if I'm spending money, I feel bad. I'm like, why am I even going to spend money if it's not going towards a welcome offer, right? We get into this mindset, and he really thought that it's something that should be talked about a lot more, the addiction of credit cards and applying for more cards and more cards. And he felt that heavily in his life, where he just had to get approved for a new card, regardless of what the outcome was. And I think there was a time where maybe he was talking about someone else, was ended up getting like a few different credit cards and had a million different, welcome offers to actually hit, and so much spend that it's impossible to end up hitting, and you end up running yourself too thin, or you start spending frivolously to start hitting those welcome offers. So I think it's a powerful message to show, like, yeah, getting credit cards are fun, hitting some welcome offers are fun. Don't get out of hand. Make sure that you are not getting too many card accounts to where it's going to maybe hurt your credit score, give you too many inquiries where it's going to affect maybe your car loans, home loans, what have you. And then also think about how much spend you organically have, and even lower that by like 20%, and be conservative with the money that you're going to be spending just in everyday life. So this way you don't run into an issue where you overextend the amount of cards that you're going to apply for. And it also is good in practicing just like delayed gratification, to where you can actually wait a few months before you get your next card. It doesn't have to be all right now. I mean, the credit card game should be in the game of years, not in the game of months. So I think a really powerful message from Woodsy is that, yes, credit cards, much like any other thing in this world, can be addictive, incredibly addictive, and could be harmful in a particular way. So I think Woodsy teaches us to take precaution and to not just jump all in on all credit cards as fast as possible, because, yeah, you could get addicted and you can run into some issues down the line. Be smart with it, get cards accordingly, and have fun, and just be a little more conservative in our approaches. So thank you, Woodsy, for that perspective on credit card addiction. I would say it's a powerful message for sure. Who's also in the service. So Woodsy, we salute you. Okay, next is calbarton. So one of the things I learned from Cal is that there are a lot of people out there who are really struggling with, maybe their credit score, or maybe they're approved for a credit card and they have really low limits. And they want to raise those limits because they want to use it for maybe bigger purchases that they can still afford. Like maybe they want to buy a couch and get, at least 1% back on a Capital One card, or a 2% back on a Citi card, or something like that. And they want to raise those limits so this way they can get the most amount of cash back, especially when you're just getting started out. And one thing I learned is that there are more of those people than I actually realized. Like more and more people. Like I was lucky that I was able to get approved for a few cards pretty easily. It was like a Kohl's card, a Capital One, Merrick Bank, and then it was Amex. And then from then on, like, all my limits were high enough for all the purchases that we're making anyway, like $1,000, maybe $2,000 at most. So I didn't really have to run into the issue of raising credit limits, but I realized there's a lot of people out there who have, $200-$500, $200 to $500 limits on certain cards. And with that, you want to be able to raise your limits. So what I learned from him is that there are a lot of people out there, and some of the methods that he did to implement to help as many people as possible raise those limits, like if it's Capital One per se, you can think about things in a different way. Like if you have a Capital One card that has a $500 limit, technically, if it is that low and maybe it is one of your first cards, and if you extra a limit and you only got like a $50 or $100 increase, you're probably bucketed, which is created at inception and essentially will disallow you to get really incremental, huge increases over time. And there's really no way to kind of break out of that. And we learned over time is that you can maybe apply for a different card, get a Capital One Quicksilver, and like, oh, all of a sudden now that's $1,000 limit, and now your baseline is 1,000, and when you ask for a limit, you can get maybe a 200 increase or a 500 increase at a time. So one thing I learned is that you don't necessarily have to just exist on these cards that have a low limit and just live with it. You could just apply for another card, and what we found was that each card that you open, and the higher your score is, the higher your starting limit will be, and the higher those credit limits will be by association. And even beyond that, the more cards that you have, the less affected your credit score will be by each subsequent opening. One thing I found in my own life was that after the third to fifth card, which were all no annual fee, mind you, for each opening past the 3 to 5 mark, really didn't knock my score down at all. Because if you think about it, you go from 1 card to 2, you're doubling your credit line, you're doubling or halving your age, so to speak, because you're going from maybe a year history to now 0. You're adding to your utilization a little bit, so it kind of balances out a little bit. But maybe you go from a 700, maybe you go from like a 600 score down to a 550 with the first opening. But then next time, if you go for a card, maybe it's 600 to 580, and then eventually over time, sometimes it goes up. When you add more and more accounts. So I think a part of it is not being afraid. If you're somebody that can handle the debt and you're not in a massive amount of credit card debt and you're just starting at 0 and neutral, don't be afraid to apply for a certain amount of cards. Hopefully you can get cards that have welcome offers, like the Capital One Quicksilver has a spend 500 get 200 back. The Capital One Saver One has the same thing, spend 500 get 200 back. Some of these cards out there that have these kind of welcome offers that all have no annual fees. Take advantage of that and get some cards. This way you have a good credit history, you have a lot of open new accounts, and you can start taking advantage of welcome offers, and it's not going to hurt your score in the long term. Because if you're just starting out, you're not going to have a high score anyway. Most of us start out like I did, low 500s, and within a year or 2 years of on-time payments and diligently paying it on time, your score is going to be in the 700s, right? So I learned from him is to not be so fearful when you're first getting started out, and it is okay to open up a new card to raise your credit limit, so to speak. Next is CJ. So my man CJ, we're always debating. We got Team Classic Gold and we have Team Rose Gold, right? And regardless if people make fun of us for that, who really cares? It's fun at the end of the day, and credit cards are not that serious to begin with, right? We're just here for awesome vacations, and if we could justify the cards, cool. And if we can make something funny about it, I'm going to make fun of some of these cards, right? So the idea is with this is, so CJ, the one thing I found out is he's really resilient. No matter what I threw at him, Rose Gold was the best card in the world. You can't beat Rose Gold. Classic Gold is the worst, right? So he's really resilient, and he's not going to budge on his ideals. And one thing I learned with him is that he started out very, very conservative as well. He started out with Discover cards and some of these no annual fee cards, and he had like maybe 10 years of experience with credit cards before he ever really jumped into heavy annual fee cards. So we're talking like Venture X, Amex Gold card, the Rose Gold. And he was able to, still increase his credit score over time. But what I learned from him is that you don't have to jump into the points and miles game right off the bat. If you're somebody that really enjoys the cash back, like the Discover card gets you, or whatever cards that are giving you, percentages back on your everyday spend, that's okay. And that is okay too. Like you can get hundreds of dollars worth of cash back on all of your spend, and you can use that to just foot the bill for whatever you just spend money on. You don't have to use your cash back or your points for just vacations. You can use it just for everyday expenses, and that is what he used it for I think all of his life up until maybe a few years ago. I forget when he actually got his first few annual fee cards and started using it for travel. So I think it's really eye-opening that is it's eye-opening because I just never really started from that side. I didn't really care too much about cashback, even though I earned like $100 in cashback over my Quicksilver lifespan. But beyond that, I was always into the points and what I can use it for the future. But hey, cashback is fine. And if it suits your lifestyle and you're not going to be traveling, use that cash back for your, for your day-to-day life. Pay for your groceries. Who cares? Use it how it works for you, but make sure you're using it responsibly again. And this way you can still build up your credit score. So when you do come to the time when you want to start traveling, if you ever do, you can have the score to support opening new cards. So that's what I learned from CJ, and that he's very resilient. Yeah, he's but he's a good guy. Next, I had a podcast with Stan the Credit Frog. He is the golden child, right? We love not the golden child, but we love Stan in the community. He is one of the most straight shooter people that we have in the space, and he always has really articulate and well detailed analyses based on his life and how he's using credit cards to maximize not only his spend, but also his future travels. And also how he's earning points through maybe business travel, which a lot of you guys are doing as well. And I think it's incredibly powerful. But one thing that he's been able to shine the light on is, the lesser known or lesser used and the less sexy cards that a lot of people talked about. In that first podcast we did together, he mentioned how much value he got out of the Bank of America system. And he talked about a way in which if you have, $100,000 in assets with Bank of America with I think it's their customized cash rewards card. Again, talk to Stan about it. He knows more, but you can essentially, with that amount of assets with Bank of America, raise the cash back you're earning on these Bank of America cards upwards to like a 2.625% cash back on everything. And then even beyond that, in some categories, I think like 5.25% back on everything. And I could be butchering this, but the idea was, and a lot of people loved about it, was that nobody talked about Bank of America, at least that I could see, but Stan was the one that was kind of like steamrolling it and telling people like, yeah, you can use Bank of America for this particular demographic and get a lot of value for it in the first place. And he's done that time and time again. I mean, he's one of the few people that has talked heavily about the Morgan Stanley Platinum card and how at that time he was able to use the investment account to be able to get a free platinum card every single year by having a certain, I think it was like $50K in their investment rewards account, and then now they've changed it where you need to have 2 different accounts, and it's all changed, and he has a whole video detailing it. But at that time, he was outlining how he was able to get a free platinum card every single year with this method with the Morgan Stanley Platinum. Nobody really talked about that. Also, he talked about his Marriott strategy. Marriott is like one of the... It's weird. Marriott gets a rap of like, it's not the most sexy program, but then people love to talk about like Ritz-Carlton and JWs and all these. So it's like they have the really high level ones, but I guess on the surface where it's in grass for most people, people don't think about them so much like they're, the lower end brands of Marriott's. But what he's been able to spearhead, and one of his best videos on his channel to date, is a strategy in which he's able to get, I think, 4 free night certificates with Marriott cards, and being able to get maybe a Marriott Boundless card for a $95 annual fee, get a free night certificate that could be used towards a Marriott property that's worth like 35K points, right? Or even, some other cards that give you free night certificates, like the Bonvoy Brilliant card that gives you, an 85K free night certificate. Get the Ritz-Carlton card that gives you another 85K free night certificate. So kind of building out a world where every single year, by holding this collection of cards, you can have 4 free nights at a particular, Marriott property of your choice. And I think that was amazing, because at that time, a lot of people were starting to think like, how can I get cards so this way I can just have free nights every single year? And that was kind of a big thing at that time. I was talking about that as well. And he was able to spearhead that and very well articulate his position on why you can get outsized returns with Marriott hotels, and with just these few cards get, a vacation every single year just by holding them, not even factoring in all the other benefits that come with the card, like status and restaurant credits and travel credits that come along on these cards. So I think it's just thinking outside of the box is what I learned from Stan, and to pursue some of these programs that are less pursued, and to see how it can maybe fit your lifestyle, like Bank of America, like Marriott, like the Morgan Stanley Platinum card. And he's a great guy, and I appreciate him. Spencer Johnson. Spencer Johnson. He's the guiding light for us all. We want to be like Spencer. He's killing it. He's about to hit. By the time this video goes out, he might almost be at 20K. He might have hit 20,000 subscribers. So he is for two reasons. So I learned two things from him. One is that he has an amazing story, and that in that he went through schooling, and he talked about this on the podcast. Everything I'm saying today is everything that I learned just on the podcast and nothing in personal life. So this way, just in case. Spencer went from college, graduating college to becoming an engineer in his field, and that was the field that he went to, and he worked there for I think 6 months, something like that, and then from that point, which we talked about, he was able to quit the job and pursue YouTube full time, and that was probably the hardest decision he has ever made in his entire life at that point. And even though it makes a lot of sense, like he was still like that time where he told me where he was like he was just growing, and I think he was like 5K subscribers, something like that, and the money was starting to come in, and he was doing really well with the views and the videos, and people really loved his stuff. And even though everything's going great, the unknown is one of the scariest things in life, and I know this very, very well by moving away from New York to South Carolina and moving away from my family. And they are still in New York, and now I'm here with my wife and her family. So jumping into the unknown is one of the scariest things in life, and why we are so fearful to make these choices in the first place. But he just had unending confidence that he, much like we view him as a guiding light, he viewed Daniel Braun in a guiding light in a way to say that he can quit his job, much like Daniel did, and he can work really hard, and he's seeing the fruits of his labor, and it's happening in real time. And if he just goes all in and just screw the 9 to 5 that he's in his personal life that's draining him, go all in on YouTube and just go at it, because you know what, that job is going to be there forever, but this YouTube opportunity might only be right now. It might happen in the future, but it might only be right now. And he is so young. He's still, I think, 24, and he has so many years of growth ahead of him that I think it was the right choice. I really do think that he made the right choice, and one of the hardest choices, which was to quit his job and to pursue what he really, really is passionate in life, which is kind of what I'm doing right now, where I'm stepping away from real estate and going all in on YouTube, because I care too much about this to let it become just an afterthought. And it's one thing I actually learned from Alex Hormozy, and me and Spencer both watch him, is that he mentions the rule of no half measures. And essentially what people do in life is that they will try to meet two goals and compromise on that goal, but you end up with two half parts of one greater goal. Meaning, his example was, some people want a dream house but also want like a good investment, like you buy a house for an investment, and usually what they end up with when they're trying to meet both goals is they end up with a not their dream house and kind of a mediocre investment, because the two maybe didn't coexist. Not saying it can't, but I think the rule of half measures is really, really important, and something I learned from Spencer as well is that he could have divided his time between the engineering job at 9 to 5, and probably more than that, and YouTube, and he still would be fine, but he probably wouldn't be at 20K today. He might only be at 10K. He might be much, much less, than what he is now, and still would be a great position, don't get me wrong. But to double in size just by going all in on something, I think is really powerful. And I think it's something that I've learned from Spencer and these guys who have done this before me, is that, yeah, when you do compromise on the goal and you keep saying yes to all the different experiences that get pushed to you in life, and what you're effectively doing is saying no to the one thing you really care about. And for me, it was, maybe I can do my old job down here in South Carolina. I could be a driving teacher, and I could do real estate because I always want to do it, and I could do YouTube, and I could do these investments. And it's like, any one of these things can work, but you want to take you want to go after the one thing that you will have the most amount of longevity. And another thing I've been learning recently is putting yourself in the position, the best vehicle to create the most amount of wealth over time. Now, if you think about it, if I went with that driving teaching job, right? Yeah, I was talking to some guys and they were making like 2 to 3K a month. And some of those guys weren't taxed on it, so I don't know how that works, but they were getting paid cash, whatever, which is not bad, right? 2 or 3K a month is not bad, and that's kind of what I was making in New York at that time. I could do real estate, and from all the people that I followed over the years who have done real estate, none of them ever really exceeded over $500,000 a year. So $500,000 a year is an insane amount of money, right? That is crazy. You know, $500,000 a year is insane, and everybody would be lucky to be making that amount of money. But I realized, like, that is with, 100-hour weeks. It's with 80 to 100-hour weeks in real estate, and then they've been able to do that in a really good market where interest rates are half what they are now. And that could work, right? And that's a good vehicle, and that's a better vehicle than driving teaching, I would say. You know, the cap is much higher. But then YouTube, I mean, how many YouTube millionaires do we know? Graham Stephan was a millionaire by 26. Now he has $20 million after leaving real estate and going into YouTube full time, dealing with the sponsorship, however you feel about him, what have you. Me, Kevin, same thing. Regardless how you feel about them, millionaire at 24, now in like close to like 50 to 100 million, something like that, all after kind of going all in on YouTube and forgetting real estate. And we just see this time and time again where a lot of people make majority of the money on YouTube. And I don't ascribe a judgment statement on that. I ascribe a statement, a fact statement on that, is that all these people have been able to accumulate a lot of their wealth on YouTube alone. So in my mind, if I'm going to choose a vehicle to put all of my time into, I'm going to want to put it in the vehicle that has the most amount of potential. And for me, YouTube does not have a cap. It just doesn't have a cap. If I just work really hard, and if I can maybe resonate with a certain amount of people, and if I could keep learning over time, and I'm going to keep making mistakes, but if I could keep documenting it and just push as much as my being out there as possible and live the life that I hope to live, then one day I can exceed that, that limit of, maybe the real estate would have been $500,000 for me one day if I just really pursued it all in. And it would go to $1 million one day, like, the Ask Sebi level, who is like the ultimate guiding light for all of us. And then I think that's probably what he's making nowadays. So I think part of it is saying no to everything else so you can say yes to the one thing that really matters. And for me and for Spencer, it just happens to be YouTube. I'm sorry if that means you're gonna see more videos. Or I don't really. I care about me, and I care about what I really care about, and I know that I am happiest when I'm doing this. And if it is valuable to a certain subsection of people, that's amazing. And if I could do that and achieve both goals, I'm very happy. And, everybody watching right now, I'm really appreciative that you're even here watching this rant. It's a long one, so I appreciate you being here. So, Spencer, thank you for being a guiding light for someone that I've known since you were at 600 subs and I was at 100. We've known each other from the very start. And so thank you for doing that, for almost giving a green light for everyone else. So thank you for that, Spencer. Next is Joshua Butler. Josh. Josh is funny. I like Josh a lot. And I met him in Vegas, do the creator meetup as well. And I found that he's very funny in person, and I really appreciate him. And you guys seen his recent videos. He just had a baby, so that's why he's taking a little bit of a step back from YouTube. He'll be back, but he's being a good father right now, and he's making sure that the kid is well taken care of. And I don't blame him. That's way more than a full-time job. I like the 168 hours every week, right? You can't even sleep. Hopefully it's easier though. But I get it. I know. So one thing I learned from Josh is that he always had so two things. One is YouTube related, and one is credit card related. The credit card related one is, well, you can take advantage of these unique credit cards. He's one of the first people to ever talk about the, the Redstone credit union card that gives you like 5% on a bunch of different categories that like no one ever heard about this card. And then all of a sudden, like they got the Redstone and like, wow, this actually is like an insane cashback card. It's just because you have to go through a little bit of hoops to actually get approved for the credit union, and you have to send some documents, I think. But once you actually get approved, oh man, I think you're really earning. And I think also that Alliance, is it Alliance? I think it's Alliance credit union card. And he experiments with these cards because he found in his life he can maximize the most amount of value with these specific cards, but ones that most people would dare to even venture into, no pun intended. He was able to dare and get these cards, so this way he can spread the fruits of his knowledge to everyone else on YouTube. And now a lot of people have those cards, and they're really appreciative of it. And another thing is that, so that was one thing, is just being really creative in your credit card journey and his wallet, what's in his wallet. The second thing is on YouTube is that he was able to bring a level of editing that we haven't really seen before on credit card YouTube before he came on the scene. And if you saw his videos, I mean, things are like flying around and things are hanging out. You know, he's like, oh, you get 3% back on gas, and you see a gas pump going into a car. I'm like, how do you even do that? It doesn't even make, it's still like, I'm okay of an editor. I mean, I don't even edit anymore, but like, like I could not even conceptualize a world where I can make sense of how to do something like that. And he learned it all on YouTube. He watched videos of people, editing, and he was able to do it for himself. So one thing I learned was that he didn't upload like super like every single day, right? Like a very often upload, but maybe he would upload even more recently, make it like this, because it used to be once a week, but now it's like maybe once a month, and now once every 2 months. But look at his videos recently, once every 2 months, once every month, over 10,000 views. You know how hard it is for me to get 10,000 views? Like I can't get 10,000 views. So it shows me that if you put a lot of quality into one piece of, you know, a video, into one piece, and you put it out into the world, that quality and that time and that attention to detail will translate to a lot of views. Meaning, views are the proxy for which people value the content that you're putting out. So the more views you get, the more people probably resonated with the message. It probably learned a lot. If it's a greater idea and greater information, more people will watch it. So the views are it's not a vanity metric, because it is the metric, the proxy for which how valuable a video is. So the fact that he's getting just easy 10K on a video after coming back after, you know, a month of no uploads is very telling to the quality that he puts in there and the value that he's providing to everybody. So it's okay to spend a lot of time on one video. For you guys who are starting out on YouTube, it's okay to work for a whole month on one video, because people will notice that, and they notice that detail, and they will people recognize when you put hard work in, and they know when you spend a lot of time to do something. So for me, I learned that you can put a lot of hard work in, and Josh does, and I appreciate him from that perspective. EricGao. Eric, he was funny in Vegas when I met him. Eric's a great guy. Him too. He also had to choose more recently between his work. We outlined it in that podcast as well, from like a new job he was starting and YouTube, and he's really trying to get his foothold in the job first before he moves on back to YouTube. But he's still doing YouTube. You know, he's doing both at the same time, and I think he's doing great. But one thing I learned from him is that he was the first one to really kind of sell me on the Venture X. You know, he's been spearheading the Venture X for what seems to be a couple of years now, and he's loved that card, and he kind of just put it in such a easy way to understand. Like, he was like, hey man, you get the $300 travel credit. If you like your hotels, you could book your hotel with that. Very, very cool. I mean, you pay for a platinum with a $200 hotel credit, right? Why not just your Venture X with a $300 hotel credit with $300 less of an annual fee? And then also the anniversary miles, what have you. And then you have the lounge access, what have you. And he was like, hey man, why are you so worried about earning like 1, to 2x on all these things when you can get, it's a catch-all 2x back miles on everything with the Venture X? And then when you pair that with your Saver One, forget it. Your earning power is insane when you have, 3% back on, your grocery, your dining, all these different things that the Saver One comes back on. And then you can combine those percents back with the Venture X and use those miles for travel for the future. He was like, it just makes sense, man. It's easy to justify. It's easy to pay for that annual fee. And it's just like the most simplistic approach you can take to the points and miles game, and still have all the outsized experience. You still get the lounge access. You still get the portal for travel. You still get travel credits. You still get a very easy earner of 2x back on everything. You don't even have to think about it. You just pay with the Venture X on everything. Who cares what it is? And you get 2x back on everything. It's like kind of a no-brainer. So EricGao taught me that simplicity can be key for this game. Simplicity can be key for this game in the points and miles game. So thank you, Eric, for that. And I want to have you on again, man. We gotta talk. ChaseYokoyama. I don't know. I always scream his name for some reason. We had an amazing time. We had a 2.5-hour conversation, and most of it revolved around collectibles, Pokemon, and a lot of other random things. And we had some just fun conversation. How to make Poke, because he's from Hawaii. Telling me the difference was between being Hawaiian and from Hawaii, and all these different things. But one thing that I learned from him that he did just prior to doing that podcast was that there is a way to beat pop-up jail. And the way he was able to do it, pop-up jail, for those who are unaware, is that when you were going to get approved for an American Express card, before you actually hit submit, well, when you hit submit, a pop-up window will pop up and say, oh, you are ineligible for the welcome offer, right? Oh, I can't get my 90K on my Amex Gold card. And then you can either hit yes and accept, and you'll accept the card without the welcome offer, or you can hit cancel the application. No harm, no foul on your credit score, and you don't accept the card, and you live to try to apply another day. So pop-up jail has been ravaging the nation, and everybody is in pop-up jail, and nobody's able to get welcome offers on Amex cards. But one thing he found when he was going for his Marriott Bonvoy Brilliant card, which is an Amex, he was pop-up jailed when he applied through the American Express website. But when he went through the Marriott website directly and applied through the Marriott website, he didn't get the pop-up window, and he actually got his welcome offer. So he was able to effectively circumvent and bypass the pop-up jail, prompt just by applying through a different way. And I didn't realize how effective that could have been until we talked, but that was really powerful that he was able to do that. And even in fact, there are some people who are doing that recently, where I saw in the Discord, somebody was actually able to go through Hilton, and they were pop-up jailed by applying on the Amex website, but then they applied through the Hilton website for the Hilton credit card, and they were approved with the welcome offer. So if you're in pop-up jail, you might as well check these other websites, like the Marriott directly, or the Delta website directly, or the Hilton website directly, and this way you can possibly avoid pop-up jail. So that's what I learned from Chase, amongst the other things of just having an amazing conversation. He's such a fun person, and I still call him the coolest guy in the credit card space. So Chase is cool. Next is Matt Welter. What's poppin', Matt? Matt is a great guy too. He was the first one to ever get everyone all together. A lot of people don't know this, but Matt Welter was the guy that got me, Spencer Johnson, Stan the Credit Frog, EricGao, and all of us all together in our own like Instagram group. And we all started like around 100. I had 100 subscribers. Matt had 200. Eric had 300. Stan had like 500 or 600, and Spencer had 500 or 600 at that time. And then there was CJ, and then Josh, and then Calby, and just a lot of great guys that we have in our whole group. So he was the one that got us all together. So I really appreciated that he did that, because a lot of us wouldn't be where we are today, and we wouldn't have these great relationships if it wasn't for him getting us all together in the first place. So Matt, seriously, thank you for doing that, man. It means a lot. It's crazy how far we've all kind of come. One thing that he taught me was that he really loves, I guess two things. One thing was that he showed me that he's pretty crazy, and that even though there was literally a plane on fire, he was still going to board the plane. There was a time where he went to an airport. He was going to fly to Mexico, I think, or somewhere in South America, with his wife now. And the plane apparently caught on fire, and he was like, I'm still going to get on that plane regardless, and we're going to go fly. So he's kind of fearless, but they didn't end up getting on the flight, and there was a whole issue, so he ended up getting moved. But one thing he taught me was that you can really kind of just go all in on Hilton and have really amazing experiences. And he's what I always regarded as like a Hilton guy over the years. He's made a lot of good videos on Hilton. And he's been able to maximize a lot of free night certificates, and all of his points and miles for amazing stays in South America. And that's another thing I learned from him, is that he just loves South America. Like when I talk about points and miles and how everyone is kind of different and your mileage may vary, that also goes to how you like to travel. I like to stay in hotels, and I haven't gone abroad yet. I want to go abroad really badly, but I just haven't yet. But we all travel differently, and for him personally, he really loves South America. He's learning Spanish. And he likes to go to these South American countries. So I think he goes to Peru, and I think he goes to Mexico, and a lot of these different places. And he shows and showcases all of his hotels there. And he went to the Waldorf, in a few different places, and just amazing experiences. Got upgraded, just great experiences. And it just kind of highlights, like, yeah, you don't have to go to Japan and I don't know where the most important places are in the points and miles game. I don't even know anymore what people talk about. I know everybody makes fun of Maldives, but who knows? Maybe it'll be cool to go there one day. But it's okay to pick your places. It's okay to find a place you like to go to. And of course, you want to branch out and you want to experience and have a perspective of different countries. But if you just really love Spanish and you just have a yearning to go there, go to all the South American countries that are safe and enjoy your time like he is. And that's perfectly acceptable. And he's having an amazing time doing that. So pick your places and who's going to fault you for that? It's your life, and live it how you want and go where you want to go. And for me personally, I'm a lover of Asian, Chinese culture. I would love to go to Taiwan, and if I could go there like all the time, I would. So I probably will in the future. So Matt, I definitely learned from you is to, live the life you want to live. Next up, we have Luke's Points and Miles. Luke, the Luke man. So Luke is so he was an interesting guy to talk to because, well, he was able to articulate a few different points. I'll give you the take home for me, which was he was talking about his son, and he was talking about trying to have an experience for his son, like using these points and miles. He's done a lot of traveling, but he more so talks about the value that he gets from his son being able to go to all these different states and by extension these countries to become more of a what he considers a person of the world or a citizen of the world, a world traveler. Because he mentioned on the podcast together that where he lives is a very small town, and you don't have many folks that look different from you or talk differently from you or have perspectives different from you. And it's eye-opening for me because I'm from New York, and that's a melting pot. So I don't care who you are. I was a driving teacher in New York, so I drove with everybody from every country in the entire world, and I love them all equally for different reasons, and I know who can drive and who can't drive. So and I could talk about all those things and all the different people and all the countries I've driven with. But what I learned from Luke is that, yeah, there are some places that you can have a smaller perspective just based on where you're from. And that's huge because it didn't really click to me that that was a thing coming from New York. And what he really urged was that he wanted to make sure that his son was able to travel to different states and different countries to become a citizen of the world so he can see people of different colors, so he can see people of different language, of different dialects, of different accents, and just changes in your mindset. I mean, the values that I get in the South from the North are very, very different. And the personalities from the North and the South are very, very different. And the fact that he's doing that for his son to let him gain a perspective that maybe he was able to earn vicariously just by being in the Navy. Luke was in the Navy, so he was able to travel around the world. His son doesn't have that perspective because he's so young still. But being able to, for those of you who have children, or if you want to take it for your own self and own advice, my lesson from Luke was that you want to travel as much as possible to become a world traveler, to learn as many perspectives as possible. Just makes you a more well-rounded person, and you can understand things from a very, very different viewpoint than everybody else. Because it's very easy, like a lot of hatred in the world, I think stems from the lack of awareness and the unknown. And like, if you don't know something, you either are upset because you're like unsure about it, you're confused about it, or you're fearful of it, and you're just unaware of what you're unaware of. Like, personally, DC was very scary for me to go to. Washington, DC, believe it or not, coming from New York, I thought DC, based on the news, was like the most dangerous place in the world. And I go there and it's the nicest place ever. My wife wants to go back, and we're like, let's go move there. It's like the nicest place ever. And I have a background of language learning, and I talk to a lot of people in China and Taiwan. I have a lot of friends in Taiwan and China, and learning the perspective of how they think about things has led me to understand people on a much greater scale for what is a limiting belief and what is not a limiting belief, and just exactly how to go across certain conversations, and even just learning a foreign language in the first place kind of opens you up to understanding how people from other countries speak to you in your own language. Like, I guess one quote I always like to remember is Nelson Mandela said, if you speak to a man in his second language, you're speaking to his brain. If you speak to a man in his first language, you're speaking to his heart. And how it relates to Luke is, if you have access to all these different languages, you learn how people talk to you from other countries, and you might think where if you're talking to somebody and you're at work and they're like, you need to do this now, and it seems rude on the surface, sometimes it is the lack thereof vocabulary from the people in those countries. And it is just the words that they can use. Like, if I'm speaking Chinese, I might come across as rude sometimes because I just don't have all the vocabulary to soften certain words. And even just learning from other countries, I talk to people from all the countries, so they don't have as much softening words as we do in America for certain topics. So you kind of get more of a thicker skin talking to people from all around the world, and you don't have to worry so much about the words and how they said it, but the words they're actually using, and being a little bit more, giving more of a benefit of the doubt that people are generally good. So Luke taught us to become a world traveler, become a citizen of the world, and to have a perspective outside of our own, so we can use that for the future. Next is JP Knowledge. So JP Knowledge, he has so much knowledge in his head. He's crazy. If you watch his videos, he's just go go go, and he's a very smart guy, and he's lived a lot of lives for sure, and he's traveled a lot in his short time as well. And the one thing I learned from him, which actually my wife learned from JP, oddly enough, is and don't get crazy. He no, JP's great, and I always remember he bought me a drink in Vegas, and I'll always salute him for that. So I appreciate you, JP. But one thing I learned from JP is that you don't need a whole week or 2 weeks. You don't need to plan a trip of a week or and beyond to have a good experience and to have a good vacation. His mindset is, if you have a weekend, if you have a Friday into Saturday or a Friday into Sunday, you can be on a plane and be in Japan within 12 hours, have your entire day, and be back before your Monday workday starts again at 9 a.m. You can be back Sunday night, go to sleep, and cool. You, over the weekend where you're working your 9-to-5 cubicle job, just went to Japan and had an amazing experience where everyone else was just kind of twiddling their thumbs, right? And so I like the fact that he made it okay to take the pressure off of a huge vacation, be like, I have to plan this amazing trip, that you can just take a weekend and you can travel to different countries and different states as long as you have the points and miles to do so, and that is okay. And I like that he gave permission to a lot of us, and specifically my wife felt that when she heard something like that, and just normalizing an overnight trip somewhere. Who knows? Like, you can literally be in Japan and be back the next day if you really are that crazy. I don't know if I would recommend it, but you can do that. And breaking that barrier of, oh, it's so far away and what have you. No, you just book a flight and you just sit there for 12 hours. You can work on the plane, and then you could end up in a whole new country, a whole new world, and have an amazing experience in just a couple of days before your next shift starts. So taking advantage while you can, take the trip, even if it's a day or so. That's what he always says. Just take the trip. So thank you, JP, for that knowledge, and I think I'm gonna take advantage of that. I think my wife for sure loves it, and it takes a lot of pressure off the idea of a big trip. So thank you, JP, for that, and we will take that to heart. CesarJoel. Cesar, he's I was really excited to have him on the podcast because I think him and I are more similar than some people may realize. He's because we come from totally different backgrounds, and his channel is Credit Card Points and Miles, but it's all Spanish. But he is the most supportive person on everybody's channel. He's everywhere. But the point is, for Cesar, what I learned was there was a couple things that Cesar taught me. One was life-based, and one was more so program and credit card based. So he was really adamant about Hilton hotels beating Hyatt. And for him and all of his life experiences up until this point, Hyatt has only given him experiences, but Hilton has always given him great experiences. And in his perspective, if you're going to choose one program to go after, like if you everyone mentions Hyatt's amazing, but if you don't have amazing Hyatt experiences, and at least in the states or the countries that you're going to, well, then you're not going to have great things to say about Hyatt. And for him, Hilton has always footed the bill for everything that he's ever cared about. And so that I think it lends to letting people understand that you can just choose one program and you can have an amazing time with that. And he can just isolate all of his spend. Like, he loves his Hilton Aspire card, his Hilton cards, and he can earn so many more points than someone maybe with a Hyatt card can earn, and use those points for more stays in the future. And I think that's really freeing, because you can have the idea of, like, I just love Hilton hotels. And this is actually something that happened in the Discord recently. Someone was worrying about, should I go between Hilton hotels and Marriott hotels? I want to get a boundless because I can get a free night certificate there, but Hilton has these free night certificate welcome offers right now. And so one thing that I told him, which was something I learned from a few people, Lonnie, Caesar, and myself, is that you don't have to spread yourself thin. If you know you like Hiltons, like I do too, and you know that it's a consistent experience every single time, and the places that you like to travel to have Hiltons, just go in on that one program, because, well, you love it already. Why spread yourself thin? Again, no half measures, like we mentioned earlier with Spencer. Go in on the one thing you know works, and the one thing that matters most to you, and you will get the most amount of points and the best experiences with that program. And then if you run out of points down the future, then you can move on over to Hyatt or Marriott and all these different things, kind of like how I'm doing recently. So it's being okay with choosing one program and going really hard in that direction. On the life lessons I learned from Cesar is to striving to be the best, and I don't just mean the cliche of doing your best. Cesar is a madman, and he has been able to do so many things in his life. He was in the military as well, so we support you. And like I said, Luke and Doc as well. And so he did really well in the military. And one thing that he learned from his drill sergeant, mind you, was he told Cesar that he is not handsome, and that he's not gifted in anything. Like, he's not incredibly skilled in anything. Not so much just to say you're a horrible person, whatever, and you're ugly, but to say you better work harder than everybody else, because you don't have the advantage of being handsome and being smart or being gifted right off the bat. And I think that's really important because, well, in a lot of people's lives, I think we think that we can't strive to be the best at anything because, well, we're not as gifted as some person. We're not as good at basketball at this given time, or I'm not as tall as that person, or I can't ask that girl out because I'm not as handsome as the other guy, or I'm not as cool as that person, or I don't make as much money as that person. But I think, or you're just not as genetically gifted. But one thing that Cesar has taught us is that throughout everything in his life, whether it be, he used to even be a leader of a Call of Duty clan, and he rose to the ranks. He was one of the top people in Call of Duty for his clan. He also, on Credit Card YouTube, is quickly becoming the biggest Spanish-speaking credit card channel on Earth. Like, he will very soon be the best and the highest on Earth. I mean, really, nobody's even that close now. I think there's one person a little bit above, but he's going to crush everybody because that's just his mindset. He is going to be the best because, well, you have to work because you're not gifted, right? You have to work as hard as you can. And one thing I took from that is just doing more than everybody else, so that you can say you've done more than everybody else, and you will get to where nobody else will go because they won't put in the same amount of work that you will. And one way I've been able to put that in my own life is with this YouTube channel more recently. And I've done this in a few other times in my life, but more recently with the YouTube channel, I could have just uploaded one video a week forever, and that would be okay, and that works for a lot of people. But I knew that I maybe wanted to accelerate my growth as much as possible, especially since I'm going all in. So why not 2 videos a week? Why not 3? And now we're kind of doing 4, with the live stream. And now for shorts, I could have just done 1 short a week or 1 a day. I'm doing 3 a day right now, and you probably don't even realize because I make sure to check the box so this way nobody gets notified, because I don't want anybody getting annoyed. But that's 4 videos a week and 3 shorts a day, plus community posts, plus the live streams. So I'm trying to just funnel as much power and as much of my being into this channel as possible to make it grow as much as possible. And because maybe I'm not as gifted as anybody else, and maybe I don't have as great ideas, and I don't have as much experience as anybody else, but I can work harder possibly than everybody else can as well. And I think that's really eye-opening, because it doesn't matter what your starting point is if you just put the work in, you will get all of the goals, and you will hit all of the goals and achieve all the goals that you have in your life, so long as you work hard at it. And I think that's very freeing. And this is also reminiscent of a lot of other things in my life as well, and what Caesar has taught us, is that, even when I was language learning, I talked about earlier, learning Chinese, there was a time where I was only learning 10 minutes a day, and then I went to 30 minutes a day, and I was like, this is too slow. Then I went to an hour a day, and there was a time where I was learning 5 hours every single day. I was mad. And I've done this at every other area of my life, whether it's working out and language learning and building a business for language learning, and then there was driving, teaching, and I was working 12 to 14 hours a day, and now YouTube. The only thing that was consistent is that I wasn't exceptionally good at any of these things in the first place, but I worked really hard and I put my entire being into it for that amount of time, and I was able to get to a point where I was happy with the growth that I was getting from all of the fruits of my labor. So Cesar taught me that, and taught all of us, is that you have to work hard because you have to hit your goals, and you might as well work hard because, well, what else are you doing? What else are you doing other than working hard and putting your heart and soul into whatever you are caring about at this time? And that also doesn't just mean YouTube and entrepreneurial stuff, in that way. It could just be you work for a bank and you want to make it to, I don't even know, do they have C-suite level? Whatever. You want to make $250K, $500K, you want to be a high level executive. That's fine. Better work, better put in the extra hours. So I appreciate that. Next up, we have Ish Sandiford. His channel is called Just Money. Ish is a very interesting guy, and we got together because Fanta, one of people who watches these things, and he's in the Discord. He said, "Oh, you guys should get together because you both have done real estate and you both on credit card YouTube and all those things." And we got together, and it was a great experience. Um, he was very fun to talk to because he had very similar ideals as far as real estate is concerned, and he learned a lot like I did from me, Kevin, over the years. Again, regardless how you feel about me, Kevin, you can't deny the amount of work that he was able to put in. And one thing we learned was that you can really do whatever you want in life. Like, he had this idea of becoming a real estate agent, so he did. And then there was a time during lockdowns in 2020 where a lot of people were making money off loan originations and just, being able to get loans put through for these houses. So he became a mortgage broker, and he was able to make some money on that end as well. And then he was able to, I think he did a couple other things. He passed a couple other tests, I'm forgetting now. And then now he has this credit card YouTube channel where he talks about a lot about Navy Federal credit cards and just, credit cards in general, and maximizing the spend, raising your credit score, using those points and miles, all those different things. But it was interesting to me talking to him and how open his mindset was on just being able to do whatever. Whatever made sense to him in this space of entrepreneurship, he was going to put his best effort forward and making those dreams a reality, whatever it was, whatever it would actually be. And part of that is he actually did what Wandering Doc did, which was he actually moved to a different country. I think also in South America, where his cost of living is like 1/3 of what he was paying probably at the time. I don't actually know the full details. And now he's kind of going all in on the YouTube channel because he's doing really well on the YouTube. I think he's at 30K subscribers, making some good money. So now he realized, like, I have nothing else tying me down. Real estate has slowed down. Might as well go on the YouTube and move to a different country and cut those costs as much as possible. And that seems like an amazing life to me. I mean, if you can cut your costs, still work from wherever you want and make decent money, and then you can just live like that, I mean, that's amazing. So I just really appreciated for Ish how open he was about a lot of different things, and that you can live the white life that you really want. If you want to go in this particular career, you do that. It's going to be hard. There's going to be tests. Like, becoming a mortgage broker is freaking hard. And he talked about how hard it was. So if you have to do it and you have to pass those tests, you better study and you better pass, because then you can now make some money in that way. So it's like having the credentials. He has the credentials to make money in so many different facets that he's always going to be valuable. He can help you buy a house. He can help you get the loan on a house. He can help you. I think he even became an appraiser too. But I might be remembering wrong, but he might be able to appraise a house, and then credit cards now. So a lot of different unique mindsets from Ish, from Ish. So I appreciate learning from him for that perspective as well. JoshGiebel. JoshGiebel. I also met him in person recently. Great guy. He is also a very, very interesting guy. He's 22 years old. He might be 23 now, but I think he's just 22. And he is lived like a crazy life. He lived in Belgium for a study abroad program for, was it 6 months or was it a year? I forget. But he was able to travel to 30 different countries by the age of 22 years old, because in between all of his college classes, he was able to take these mini flights from country to country to country to country and just kind of piggyback and leapfrog from all the surrounding countries that were in or near Belgium. And he did all of this without points and miles. And it's one of the things that he laughs at now. It's like he paid cash for all of these, cheap flights and cheap lodging over those years. But he doesn't regret it whatsoever. He doesn't regret paying for cash because, again, now he can speak from the perspective of traveling to 30 different countries. And he's one of the most, well-rounded global people, because he's literally like an ambassador. Like, he can speak about a lot of different countries and their own politics and maybe the struggles they have, and just he just knows a lot of different things. And I think it just comes from all of the travels he's done and just living abroad for, a certain amount of time in his younger years. And now he's coming to the point where has a hybrid kind of setup where he's using some cashback cards and then some points cards, and then maybe sometimes cashing out points for his next travels going forward. And still kind of paying cash for a lot of them, but he likes the idea of cashing out points for things to do when you get to a location, but then also using points for to get to the destination in the first place. So he also taught us and taught me that you can have a hybrid approach to things. You can have some cashback cards, you can have some travel cards. You don't have to choose between Team Cash and Team Travel because they all lead to the same place. They all lead to, hopefully, down the line, life-changing vacations for pennies on the dollar. And if you can use that cash back for your tours, for your restaurant spend, your food when you actually get there, for parking and toll, all these different things that you have to pay for to travel to a new place, then what the hell? I mean, you might as well have a hybrid approach just like Josh. So it's kind of lending a light that there is a world where you can have both. You can have a hybrid approach and still have amazing experiences. And even if you have to pay cash, he's not talking about it like he regrets it. He does not regret 30 countries by the age of 22 paying cash. So that's a world too where that makes sense. So I appreciate Josh for being open about his experiences and teaching us that it is okay. Next up is RJ. RJ Financial, baby. He is such an interesting guy. He is one of the most matter-of-fact people, and he will give his opinion on something if you ask him it. And he's just the straightest shooter I've ever seen. And he's a great guy. And one thing that he does in the space that is very unique from everybody else is he focuses on cashback. That is his world. He focuses on cashback, and then beyond that, also earning some cashback, but earning some money from bank account sign-up bonuses. That's less talked about, at least in our space. We're all about the credit card welcome offers, but never so much about the bank account welcome offers, right? And he kind of tackles both ends of cashback and bank account bonuses. And honestly, what I learned from RJ is that you really can do that. You can do the cashback, and you can do the bank account welcome offers and what have you, and live an amazing life. He's been able to earn, I think his goal was $10,000 a year from bank account bonuses. That's crazy. Earning an extra what is that, $800 a month? $820 every single month in bank account bonuses by the end of the year. That's crazy. That's in some cases more than 30% of some people's income. And he's getting that just from signing up for different banks, inputting some new money in there, and then getting the welcome offer on those bank accounts. And then of course on top of that, getting cash back on all of his cards, getting, I think Luke has called him Mr. 5X all the things, or 5% back on everything that he wants in life. And he's self-admitted a hermit. He is self-admitted he does not want to travel. He likes staying right where his computer is. He says, I like to look here at the camera, and I like to look here at my computer, and that's it. And that's the life he likes to live, and that's fine. And what he's able to do is take all of the money that he is earning through cashback and through bank account bonuses and not use it for travel. Use that for investments, whether it be in the stock world, and I think he does a lot in real estate. So he's able to maybe take this $10K every year, and that's a new down payment on a new house, whatever the price may actually be in whatever area. And he's able to take these, what would be points, and what would be cash back, and use it for real life tangible stuff. And of course, there's a world out there where we say experiences are worth more, and investments are worth more. You kind of have to have both, right? And RJ is definitely very hard in this one direction. I'm sure he's doing really, really well financially as RJ Financial in life. And just, it's interesting to see somebody who is going full on the cashback side and using it for investments, because I think that's really powerful, and not enough people do that. I think not enough people will think about cashing out points and let me buy stocks with it, or let me buy a house with it. But it's very possible. It's very doable. So I think that's a really powerful message that he shares with the world. And listen, 40,000 subscribers, he's got a good message, and people love what he has to say, right? So that's valuable in and itself to even garner a following of 40,000 people. He's changing a lot of lives out there. In fact, when I did that podcast with him, that first podcast, the first message that ever came up in the live chat was, RJ helped me make $1,000 from bank account bonuses. You help someone make $1,000 and they love you forever. I think that's really powerful and a testament to him as a person, and we all appreciate RJ definitely in this space. Next is JPBuffet. What's going on, JP? So JP, we had a fun conversation. So JP was very interesting to me because I followed him on YouTube and Instagram, and he always had these very interesting pictures. And he was very, I don't know, they were almost not cartoon-esque, but almost like he was in a sci-fi movie. And all of his travels to Japan and these different countries, he always edited them in such a way, because he's a photographer and he does all these things in such a way that it looked like he was in a sci-fi movie. It was very, very cool. But one of the lessons I learned from him is that he actually just got his PhD. So congrats, he just got it recently, I think a couple months ago, and now he's back on YouTube. And one thing I learned is that if he has been able to travel as much as he has, and he talked about it on the podcast, him and his wife and all of his travels, and he's been able to grow a YouTube channel as well and do all these different things, and if he's been able to do that while pursuing a PhD, I mean, what excuse do we have, right? Like he's he is doing it out better than so many different people. It's crazy that we have so many of these intelligent people in the game. You know, I like if this is PhD, I'm down below the table. so so I appreciate we have guys like JP who have a higher intellect to be able to showcase all the things that he loves in the Points and Miles game, which is all the travels he's been able to give to himself and his wife over the years, but then also keep pursuing like his goals of getting a PhD and kind of doing them both at the same time. So of course I talked about earlier where it's like no half measures and you have to maybe choose one thing, but no, it's not the case. JP has been very successful in his travels, builds a YouTube channel, and he got his PhD recently, and you can kind of do it both. He's working very, very hard. Don't envy him, but it's knowing the idea that you can do it all as long as you're really good with your time, and I'm sure he's a master of productivity to be able to get that done. So JP is giving us the green light to work harder, so to speak. Even if you have things going on, you could always work harder. You could always make another video. You could always work an extra hour. You could always, you know, you can do something extra to get some more experience under your belt. So take that next trip. So thank you, JP, for that. Next is JakemerCure. So JakemerCure is so Jake was a fun person to talk to as well, and he is very interesting to me because, well, he almost kind of, and I don't think this is a negative thing because I'm also the same generation. We're both Gen Z. I'm just slightly elder Gen Z, but he has a perspective of the world in a slightly younger view that I've noticed. You know, that in kind of talking through just the economy, talking through just how it feels to be a 25-year-old in, I guess he's in New York City now, and going through life and just seeing how much inflation has really affected people on a day-to-day basis, and seeing how it's affecting him on a day-to-day basis because he's actually documenting it every single day that he's living. You know, he's showcasing what he does, how he's saving money, and he's very crafty. He's able to like save a lot of money on a lot of different things. It's pretty crazy, just by doing the work himself, and he's pretty crafty. And one of the more interesting things I learned, is that with him and the Chase Sapphire Reserve, it's gonna sound silly, but he showed me that you can really value a lot of different things. So in his case with the Chase Sapphire Reserve, of course you get the $300 credit, cool. The annual fee is $250, what people say, right? But one way he's been able to mitigate his annual fees more is he got it's like a $200 Lyft Ping membership, and I guess that gives him like, I guess, discounted or free rides on those Lyft bikes or even Lyft scooters. And I have real experience with this now going to Washington D.C. I paid like the sum of like $20 for Lyft scooters, and I hate to admit it, but it was a lot of fun. So I understand why he appreciates that membership so much, is because, well, when I was in DC and it was like kind of raining out and I got on the bike and we were just zooming around, like me, Calby, and CJ zooming around on our Lyft scooters, it felt very free. And I never had that feeling. Like you're in the car and you have the windows up and you're like, oh, I'm cool in my car. But being out in the elements and on an electric scooter flying down next to the Waldorf Astoria in Washington, D.C., it's a pretty different feeling. And it opens my eyes to the fact that, well, yeah, okay, it's funny, you're getting on a scooter or a bike, but some people don't have a car. Some people are in these metro cities and you're not buying a car. There was a time where I was going to sell my car to buy an electric bike because I wanted to save money on the gas, and I can get some money back on the car that I bought back when I was 16. So kind of having a card that can maybe give you free rides, or I don't actually know what it is, but if it can give you discounted or free rides with the Chase Sapphire Reserve, and if you can really value that Lyft scooter, and I could take that to work back and forth every single day, and it's just fun to do. I mean, who am I to say that that's not a good justification for a credit card? And especially if he's getting way outside, like he says, he's getting way more outsized value, like profiting from the CSR every single month, just by having that Lyft Ping membership. So it really opens my eyes to say, like, again, you need to find what you really value in life. What do you really care about? And how can you enhance your life? This is, again, the Points and Miles game in my mind, and my belief is to enhance every aspect of your life. If that also means getting on a Lyft bike or a Lyft scooter because you can get to work back and forth and you're saving money on gas in a car, you're probably doing better than someone who has a platinum card who can't use any of the benefits, but you care about lounges, right? Maybe speaking from experience. So Jake kind of gives us the permission to care about the things that we care about and what we can justify and what makes sense in our lives so we can save money elsewhere. And if we can enhance our life in any way with some of these cards, then so be it. And I think that's powerful. So thank you, Jake, for teaching me that, even though it sounds silly. And we had a great conversation about a bunch of other things. But that was the take home for me, is that you don't have to be locked into one particular ideal. And everybody's life is different. Everybody's life is different. And if you have a different life, you're going to have a different card. And I think that makes sense for him. Next is my man, Joe Barreto. Back again with another video. Joe Barreto, man, that's he's quickly become one of my best friends in this space, and we talk all the time on the phone, and a lot about life and about YouTube as well, and just credit cards in general. And he is self-admitted one of the older guys in the space, right? I hate to bring it up, but it's part of why my lessons from you, which is Joe is 57 and has way more experience than most of us do in our entire lives, and he's so smart, and he can speak really articulately on a lot of the problems that a lot of us younger folk are facing as we're kind of growing older, and he can kind of speak to that side a lot better because he's lived it. And one of the things I learned from him is it's never too late to also start, because, well, he's had an Amex Gold card since 1989. That's right, and he just canceled it recently. I guess, everybody wants to cancel. But he's had like points and miles games for a while, but he really went really hard over the past 2 years. And one of the first videos I ever saw from him, and what I learned in the podcast with him, was that it really is never too late to start. And in the span of, I think, 11 months, he was able to amass over 2 million credit card points. And that was between, like, was it 10 different cards, something like that, in just 11 months? So 1 year he was able to accumulate 2 million points, which is more than I've been able to accumulate in the last 6 years. Kind of close, but without referrals, he was able to get 2 million points, and that's really powerful. And it's never too late to start, because that was just couple of years ago that he went full on and just got all these different credit cards, and he was able to be really creative with, maybe an AC gets broken and he has to pay on the credit card, open up a card for that. He's paying his taxes for himself and I think his sister in different states, and they have big tax bills. Use my credit card for that. Now I can have a welcome offer. Tax payments on just whatever he's earning every single year, and pensions, what have you. There's taxes on that, that you might have to foot at the end of the year depending on how well you're doing. Put that on your credit cards as well, and just being really, really thoughtful about which cards you're opening and when you're opening them, so this way you can maximize all the spend you're going to be spending anyway for all these things that we kind of lean into as we get older, as we get houses and have taxes, as we have bigger investment portfolios, and maybe you have to pay capital gains tax, and you owe at the end of the year. Maybe you have a higher tax bracket and you owe more at the end of the year because of your business or what have you. All of these different things that you can have in your early or in your later stage of life, when everything else is kind of covered, where your house is kind of paid off or your cars are paid off, and you don't have to worry about the woes of today, where like, can I still afford a house? Can I afford a car? He's done that already, and he's done it, and he showcases that at that stage in life, you can just go hard and just get a million different credit cards, and it's not going to affect your credit because you already have everything that credit would want to give you anyway. And now you can earn 2 million points, where now he's able to travel to, he went to Switzerland with his wife not too long ago, and he has a lot of trips planned, and he can do that. And he's living life, and he's living life how he wants to live it. And I really appreciate that about Joe, and he's super honest and about everything, open and honest about everything. And I think he is the real cornerstone which keeps the positivity in this space entirely. And I think we should look to him for more wisdom. Next is Midlife Money Moves. So he is actually from a different genre. He's actually from the high levels of debt credit card space, and spreadsheeting and budgeting. You need a budget and being able to get out of debt for the future. And his channel is dedicated towards him being $72,000 in debt from student loans and some taxes that he never paid. And he talked about all this on the podcast, the unpaid taxes over the years, and he just kind of let it go and go. So it was he opened my eyes to perspective of a lot of people who are in the debt game, people who have a lot of debt. When it's happening long enough, you make it okay. You make it okay that the debt is accumulating because, well, I didn't pay it last year, well, I'm going to pay it this year. And then it just keeps, the snowball accumulates over and over and over to the point where now he's $72,000 or $74,000 worth of debt. And he talks about how hard that is because, well, yeah, he can't necessarily, his credit is probably a bit wrecked. Can't buy the house, can't buy the car, and he, living, below your means to be able to foot those bills as much as possible to pay down that debt. And one thing that he actually did recently that he recounted on his videos is that he actually claimed bankruptcy. And it opened my eyes to what's possible because, well, he's 54. He might be 55 now. I'm not sure. There was a little bit ago. And he recently claimed bankruptcy at this age, 54. And now I think most of that debt is wiped out. I think he's left with like a very small amount of that now. You can find out on your own in his videos, but he's been able to claim bankruptcy and wipe out his debt, and I guess kind of hit the reset button. And I thought that was really powerful because, well, everyone's too afraid to do the thing. Nobody wants to say that they claim bankruptcy, but ask anybody ask your parents. At some point, they actually did claim bankruptcy at one point. Like, a lot of people, more than you would realize, have claimed bankruptcy for one reason or another. And it's not, I don't necessarily think it's something you need to be judging yourself for, because if you do get in that situation, it's enlightening and gives us permission you can always start over. If you have built up this debt over time and you've already been living this life for a while and you're like, I can forego the next 7 years or whatever it actually ends up being, a couple of years, forego that time and still live the life you've been living. I mean, you're not really changing much. The only difference is now you are like, you don't have this worry or this burden of $74,000 worth of debt anymore because you gave yourself the permission that, yes, I'm going to be that guy who claims bankruptcy. And there's a lot of power in that, and he took control of his life, and now he doesn't have to worry about that massive amount of debt that he's accumulated over those years. And it sucks that it has to come to that point, but that's how you get out of it, I think. And I think it's, again, it lends to some permissions to allow us to do the thing regardless of what the world tells us or society tells us is the right thing or the wrong thing, or you're a failure if you claim bankruptcy. Forget it. My broker has claimed bankruptcy, and he makes $350,000 a year now. Who cares? Who freaking cares? Do what you have to do in this moment, so this way you can set yourself up for the future. And it doesn't matter if you're 20, and it doesn't matter if you're 60. Freaking do it. Do it now, because you might as well now, because when else are you going to do it? When else are you going to make the change to make your life better for the future? Right? Right. So let's move on. So thank you, Midlife Money Moves, for that. I really, we appreciate your perspective there. Sean Lane, man, he is a force to be reckoned with, man. I was like one of the most, I'm always nervous before each podcast, but I was really nervous for him because he, in my opinion, outside of Sebi, has the most experience in the points of miles game than anybody. I don't mean to fault anyone else. It's just my perception of him, because I mean, you can talk about a country and he's been there. And he's been to in every type of Hyatt brand or every type of status you can get. He's had the highest level of status of every hotel brand imaginable. He's flown the highest level of business class and first classes and on planes. And he just every time I talk to him, he's like, oh, I'll be in China next week. He's like, okay, that's cool. I'll be back in a couple weeks. I'll be in Indonesia. I'll be in Bali. I'll be back here in a couple of weeks. I'll actually be in Vietnam. How are you just constantly abroad? How are you constantly traveling? But he is. And one thing that I learned from him, which is a million different things, but the main thing I learned from him is to speak as convincingly as he does, to have as much confidence in everything that he speaks about, and he has his channel on the BS podcast, to be able to put forward that amount of energy he puts out in the world and his perspectives, and how he can kind of put the hammer down on all the things that we are theorizing about in the points miles game at just the age of 23 years old, lends to the fact that you have to live it. You can't just talk about everything without living it, right? And if you're going to say you're going to be a travel person, then be a travel person. And you might as well have as many experiences as possible. Go to all of these millions of different countries, so this way you can experience them and then you can talk about them on a higher level. And if you are a cashback person, again, you can have the cashback and buy real estate with it. But whatever you do it to as high level as you can reasonably. Of course, we don't have 1 million points and we don't have $1 million in cash. But he's shown that you can take 1 million, trips if you need to, and you can gain these experiences as much as possible. And I think it just lends to being don't be so confident in all of your opinions if you haven't done the work that someone like Sean has done. And that's why I've learned, and why over time I've more so been talking about all of my mistakes and all of my shortcomings, and exactly the limit of what I've been able to do in credit card points and miles. I never tell people I'm a world traveler. I say I've only traveled to however many states in the United States, and I've stayed at some pretty cool hotels, and I've been able to do that with an income of less than 30K. That's what I could speak to, and there are, I'm sure, people out there that can understand my point of view and say like, oh yeah, I'm like him too. That's where I'm going to listen to things. But as I grow and I eventually do go abroad, and then I'll be able to speak about Italy, and I'll be able to speak about Japan and Taiwan and all these different things, and I can speak to a high level. But for now, I'm not going to, and I'm not going to act like I can. I'm not going to put forward opinions like I know everything and I am the arbiter of truth, right? Like if I haven't experienced as much as Sean, I'm just going to shut up and listen. So what I learned from Sean is do the thing and then speak confidently about it. And there's too many people who talk about things in absolute certainty that could be verifiably true just by proxy of someone's experience, like Sean or any of these guys who've been traveling a lot. So don't be so hard pressed on your opinions if you don't know for absolute fact and you haven't done the thing, which is why I will continue to be who knows until I know. So I think that's important in every aspect of life, but more specifically points and miles. Next is Michael Wong. So Michael Wong, man, he is a great guy. I actually met him in person recently, and I appreciate him and his perspective. And I will start with him in his tagline at the end of each of his videos. And his tagline is "Life is short, travel more." And really need I say more? And everything he talks about and all the travels he does and all of his videos, it's all kind of centered around, well, life goes by way too fast. Kind of on the same topic of earn and burn, but life goes way too fast, and I'm realizing this more and more as I'm getting older. I'm 27 now, and I'm realizing like, yeah, I'm not, in the teens anymore. I'm like, wow, getting closer to 30. Like, this is weird. Like, how the hell did I become 30? I don't feel 30. I'm like 18. Just getting started in life, right? But what you realize is like, yeah, every year goes by, and if you're not going towards a particular goal or traveling more or doing what you said you wanted to do the year prior, you're really kind of wasting your life. And Michael Wong kind of taught me and everyone, since life is so short, and if one of life's great pleasures is to be able to travel to these different destinations with your significant other, have those experiences and enjoy life while we can, and while we're young enough to be able to enjoy it, healthy enough to enjoy it, you might as well travel more. And he taught me a lot of other things, like how different customs are in Italy and Asia and a lot of these different things. But I really want to stop there, and I like his message of life is short, travel more. I think it's powerful in and itself. Next is Lonnie. Call me Lonnie. So he's a force to be reckoned with. He's a trailblazer on YouTube, and he's a real crazy master editor and a real attention to detail. And the biggest thing, and I think a lot of people know, the biggest thing that he has taught me and a lot of other people is points diversification is not the be-all, end-all. And a lot of people have mentioned, like, oh, I want to have Chase points and Amex points, and I want to have Hilton points, and I want to have, Delta Sky Miles, and I want to have all these different options available to me. But Lonnie says no. Lonnie says for him, he would rather earn everything in United miles for everything, because everywhere with his job or anywhere he likes to travel, he can get there with United. He lives near United Hub. Anything he does in life, he can do with United. And with those United miles, he can book flights. He could book experiences like cruises. He could even book hotels with his United miles. So in his mind, it's like, why spread myself so thin when I can isolate and focus on one program, one thing I have to worry about, one card, one airline, one points currency, so this way I can book all of my travel with that one currency. And he talks about it to this day. He cannot spend his United miles fast enough. He's spending more than he's earning. Sorry, he's earning more than he's spending, right? So he said, he's like, oh, I just booked like a year's worth of travel out, and I still have 300,000 miles. He's crazy. And I think if you can live in a world where you can earn one currency and it could get you to anywhere you want to go, because with these United miles, he booked a cruise, he booked his United Airlines, and he could book hotels like Hilton's, Hyatt's, Marriott's, all with his United miles, because it uses those portals, the third-party portals that have access to all of them. So one thing I learned from him is you don't have to diversify to be successful in the points and miles game. You can choose one program and you can really live a perfect life, and you can earn this amount of points and isolate on one thing and get high level United status to have upgraded flights and live a great life, have great experience with the points and miles and get everything everyone else is doing, but focus on one currency, and you don't have to spread yourself thin. I think it's really powerful and it's very interesting. And I think he's the first to really articulate that. So thank you, Lonnie, for that wisdom. He's definitely a very interesting guy, and I appreciate him. Next is Dugraz. I think he's great. I think he's one of the funniest people in the space, and I enjoy his time and his company for sure. He's definitely the antithesis, and this is what he self-proclaims as the average Joe. He talks about, I'm the average Joe from Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa, what have you. And he's, an average income, an average person, but he's been able to use his points and miles for above average experiences, right? Like, and one thing that he really taught for me was the Wyndham Earner's Business Card and Vacasa, and that was one of the things, but one of two things with him is that you can use this Wyndham card, one that like goes under the radar for a lot of people, but you can use those points for Vacasa rentals, which is like cottages and like these maybe log cabins depending on where they are. He was able to do this abroad in another country. And he was literally like on a farm with like cows and sheep and stuff like that. And like he had that amazing experience. And I don't think he likes to be in those like heavy dense areas. He likes to be in those kind of rural areas. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? I know he just went to DC too. But one thing I learned from him is that, you don't have to have the most luxurious things in the world. You can just have a lot of mini stays in different places, or like a log cabin here, like lower end hotels that you can go to in day-to-day life and have great experiences and enjoy your time while you can. So he really, I think, taught us is that even if you're average, and even if you do average stays, you can use your points and miles for those stays. And I think they're really unique, honestly. I think they're above average. If you're going to stay in like a cottage in the middle of some other country, some farm, and like you can live amongst nature and you can book that experience with points, like that's crazy. Who would have thought you could have done that? He was able to do it. And, even log cabins on lakes somewhere. I think it's very cool, very unique. And it's different from just a normal, I'm going to book my Hyatt house, and it's just in the middle of a city or something like that. Stay in a log cabin every now and again. Stay in a bed and breakfast every now and again. Stay on a cottage every now and again, like a stone house. I think it's pretty cool, and I definitely am going to start doing that going forward for the future. So thank you, Dugaros, for that. Next is Richie. Richie is a great guy. He has his own series, Beyond Credit, which is he goes behind the scenes on all of the people that we talk to on a day-to-day basis in the space, right? And he talks to Spencer, he talked to me, he talked to Chad, a lot of different people about their lives beyond just credit cards, right? And that's the name of his podcast. And he was in the military. We talked a lot about his military experience, but one thing that I definitely take from Richie is that he is a hoarder. He likes to hoard all of his points and miles, and I think he has like close to 1 million Amex points now, maybe 500,000 Chase points. And what he's doing is he's kind of accumulating all these points, so this way he can book a very grand 20 to maybe 25 year anniversary for a vacation to like the Maldives, or I think he's changing it now to like a different location because he doesn't want to wait and he'd rather go to like some other place, Italy or something. But he's okay with that, and he works really hard. And I think it also is lending to the perspective of you don't always have to just earn and burn. You can just build up these points and miles over years and years like he has, because he has that one redemption in mind. And hell, who are you to say that if this is one redemption over his lifetime and he really wanted it and he did it as best as he could possibly do it, who is anyone to say that that's a bad redemption and that he should have traveled more and he shouldn't have waited for the big redemption? Even though I think he also is being a little bit crazy. Like, he can have enough points to book it now. I think he's just like, he's frugal with it, right? He doesn't want to spend it all. But again, the perspective of, yeah, you can just build up your points and miles and you don't have to earn and burn them like everybody says you have to. You can hold out, and if you have one big grand goal trip, hold out for it and book that trip the moment you have the amount of points requisite to book that experience out. And I think that's I don't think that's controversial to say so. So keep going, Richie. I can't wait to see your series, and I can't wait to see you finally do that grand trip that you're planning. I'm excited for him. Next is Konstantinos. Konstantinos, man, we go back a little bit. We did a live stream once when all of his American Express cards unfortunately got canceled. Every single one, and he lost like a little over 100,000 points. And there was just some discrepancy with putting addresses on authorized users, and I really don't think it was his fault. But he was able to teach us through my recent experience and recent podcast with him that, yeah, you can live a life without American Express. I guess two things. One, you can be canceled, like all of your Amex cards can be canceled and they take their points away from you. But he still applied and was approved for was it Hilton Aspire? I forget. It was a Hilton card, I think, and he still got approved for a Hilton card. So it's like he wasn't even blacklisted, even though they canceled all the cards. He was able to restart and get new Amex cards again. So one, I guess if that happens to you, and that's never really too late, you can still get Amex cards somehow. But then two, I learned that you can live a life without Amex. He loved all of his American Express cards. He loved them, but he lived a life for a while when they were all canceled of different cards, and he talked about it on his channel, like life after the aftermath of all of his Amex cards being canceled. And I don't think he really skipped too much of a beat. He still had points and miles from Chase and all these other programs that you can use for hotels and flights and what have you. So like we think Amex is like the be all end all for travel, but really you could do it with any program, whether it's like Lonnie with United, or if it's Delta and Delta Miles, you can book hotels and air miles. If it's Chase points, you could book your Hyatt hotels and your flights with that. There's a lot of different currencies that could get the job done. It's not just Amex is the be all end all. And I think what we learned from Konstantinos is that yes, it is okay to not have any Amex cards and still have amazing experiences out in life where you can travel every single day. So I think that's eye opening as well for me, just to say that. Do you need Amex cards? Is it nice to have all those points? Yeah. Oh hell yeah. Do you need them? If you don't get them, who cares? Constantino lived without them, and now he's getting them again because he just wants them. But you don't have to live with them, and you could still have great experiences with it. So don't feel like you have to be in the cult of Amex. I'm one to talk, right? Anyway, next is Sherwin. So Sherwin is one other half of the BS podcast with Sean Lane, which I mentioned earlier, and he's another guy who is just insane. 22, 23 years old, 24 years old, I forget his age, but he's actively doing all these travels, and he's able to travel to such a high level, just like Sean is, but he's still going to school currently. He goes to Stanford, and that's part of the BS podcast, Berkeley Stanford, and he is the Stanford in that equation. And he showcased that, yeah, you can still go to school, and you can still be young, and you can still have these outsized experiences just by leveraging credit cards how we're supposed to. You could see the theme in this entire video here. It's like, you can have the same experiences no matter what walk of life that you're actually in at this current time. And one thing I learned from him that I thought was very interesting is he was very unique in his approach to earning these welcome offers and getting cards and earning points, which is his tuition. He found that he was able to pay with credit cards, and so every time like his tuition, whatever it was, if it was quarterly or yearly, got a new welcome offer on a card, used that to hit the minimum spend, and got the sum of hundreds of thousands of points every single time he had to pay his tuition. So if you're going to be paying tuition anyway, and they allow you to pay with a credit card with no fee, you might as well pay with a credit card, get the welcome offer, and get those points back for the spend you're going to spend anyway, right? Like, I'm upset. I did 1 year of college and then I dropped out, but I spent $8,000 on that 1 year, and I'm like, I got nothing for it. I paid for it literally on a debit card because I was 21 and it was like just before I got my first credit card. And so it's I think being unique with whatever situation you're on, being crafty with whatever situation you're in, and in any way you're able to earn welcome offers for spend you're going to do anyway, whether it's like he said with his Stanford tuition. For me, if it's my rent now that I moved out and I can put $1,500 in rent on my credit cards every month, cool. Whether it's even child's daycare, like I've heard some people do. Like Chad, he talks about, I think it's like, his daycare, he can put his credit cards on and he can get the welcome offers on. So stuff in day-to-day life that we're all paying for money for anyway, just know that if if you allow yourself, you can be open enough to find ways to hit welcome offers on cards. So this way you can be like Sherwin or be like Sean and all these people to keep traveling, all while doing the thing that you have to do at this current time, whether it's job, schooling, what have you. And beyond, there's a lot of other things, like trifectas are overrated, and he just would rather get welcome offers than earning multipliers, and he's still meticulous. There's a lot of different things I learned from him, but the main thing was that, just being crafty with your welcome offers. Next is Ninja. So Ninja is another great guy. So Ninja, everybody's great. I love everybody. But Ninja, I learned, is a guy who's he's in the space. He's not a YouTuber, but he is one of the smartest people I've met, and he's in the Discord, and he has a lot of unique perspectives on a lot of different things. And he popularized something for me, which was EPP, experience per point, right? We've heard cent per point, CPP, but we've never heard EPP, which is experience per point. And one thing that he really urged throughout all of his experience was that he had experiences that I guess were high cent per point and a bad experience, and sometimes low cent per point and a great experience. And the only metric that he thought was the most consistent across the board was that what was the experience you had when you went to a specific destination personally? Was it a great experience, or was it not a great experience? Because there's no right price on the wrong product. And if you go to a location where it's like, I don't know, maybe you just have a really bad experience, you're like, oh, I'm gonna get robbed, or I don't know, it's like a dangerous situation, but the redemption's like a 10 cent per point for a hotel. Or if you go on a plane and it's like 20 cents per point on this airline, but like there's no service and nobody came around and like lights came off and there's no air coming out, was it really a good redemption in the first place? So in his mind, the best metric over time to see what's the best experience possible in the points and miles game and how you can value it most accurately is via experience per point. What was the experience you had? How much value did you get out of it? Was it life-changing? Was it not life-changing? If it was life-changing, that's a great redemption, regardless of how many points you actually ended up using. And of course, he understands there's nuance to this. You're not going to redeem a point for less than 1 cent per point, like a Chase point. You're going to want more than that. We have like a foundation for what we want. But for the most part, anytime we're doing redemptions, it's kind of usually above that point anyway. So it's kind of null and void. I mean, I haven't really found any like if I use it for Hyatt stays, I haven't found a Hyatt stay that's less than 1 cent, or even close to 2 cents per point, really. 1.5 maybe. So like there's nuances to it, but for him, the main metric is experience. And for that, I think it's very freeing because you don't have to think so hard about the redemption. Like, this is a great place, but I don't want to book it because it's only 2 cents per point. It's not 5 like I'm supposed to get, like everyone tells me to get, right? Take the 2 cents per point. He urges take the 2 cents per point because at least you're doing a trip and you're going to get it done versus, paralysis analysis. So I appreciate his perspective on that, and Ninja, for that, I definitely salute you. I think experience per point is great, and I think a lot of people can learn from that. Next is Tito. Tito, what's going on, man? Tito is great. He is a very unique guy, and he has a very unique story. And again, an experience of going from being someone who was born in Mexico, and he was able to come to America from a very early age, and then learn English, and has been able to, go throughout. He was working like for banks and stuff like that, and then now he's using his points and miles for outsized, vacations, what have you. And he has a lot of back end experience from working in a bank, from just maybe new laws that are going to be passed, like the Durbin laws. He articulates that very well, and then beyond that, just how points and miles rewards will be granted or taken away over time based on the economy and based on what laws are even being pushed. So he has a lot of insight on all of that, and I learned a lot in those cases. And I would definitely say for him, one thing that he also gave me permission to believe is that he believed that his Venture X was a very good value proposition for a lot of the reasons I actually mentioned earlier, which is you can get your lounge access, you can have easy to use credits, an easy justify card, and an easy to simplistic to use card, like a 2x back and everything. And he has everything that he cares about in life. And he loves the Priority Pass lounges. He loves Plaza Premium. So he gets it. And he actually mentions that the Amex Platinum card to him would be a part-time job. And he says it kind of funny, but he also agrees. It's like, yeah, if I have a Platinum card, there's so many different things that, I need to keep track of on a day-to-day basis. So many different things that I need to worry about. That I would have to use these credits and coupons for value that I'm already getting from the Venture X in the first place. So like, why would I even put myself through that pressure? And he kind of opened my eyes to that a little bit, and why I'm kind of shifting away by just finding the things I care about on the Platinum card, finding that elsewhere for cheaper. And then if lounge access is what I'm worried about, well, it seems like a lot of these guys are using Venture X for lounge access abroad, and it's doing very, very well. So I love Tito's mindset on a lot of these different things, and I like that he gave permission to say, like, I'm doing everything that I want to do in travel, and I do need a Platinum card to foot that bill. So I appreciate that, Tito. Next is John R. So John R, man. So John is he's another trailblazer in this space. He has been around. He supports everybody, and he is one of the most open, authentic, and honest people that we have in our space today. And what I will definitely say for him is that he is a very big proponent and advocate of what works for him. And I know this is a very much everybody is what works for them, but he really believes it. Like, he has his Delta cards because he likes using the Delta cards, and they were able to get him to Iceland, and he wants to fly Delta One, so he just booked out a bunch of first class flights and Delta One flights because he really loves Delta. So he's only going to fly Delta, and he's only getting Delta credit cards from now on because he just loves the program, and it could get him wherever he wants to go. He has the Platinum card because he loves maybe the statuses that come on the Amex Platinum card, and or it all of the outside lounge access and stuff that he really appreciates well. As he's now ramping up all of his travel now, he wants those experiences. And again, he's flying Delta, and he loves his Delta Sky Club lounges. And so with him, it's like he only knows what works for him. He's not even worried about what could be maximized in other ways, or other people's opinions on certain things. He's like, this works for me, and that's okay. And he will continue to do that going forward because he found the program. Pick your programs wisely, right? He loves his Delta, and he loves staying in some unique places when he goes abroad, and he loves his maybe his Platinum card for all the lounge access that he's getting with those cards. And who can really fault him for that, because he has gotten great value, and he's enhancing his life every single day just by having these cards. And he'll tell you if you watch his videos and if you talk to him in the Discord. He's a great guy, very authentic, and you're going to get the straight shot from John R. for sure, in all the ways that he's using his cards for his life in this given moment, and how he's using it to maximize it. So gives us permission to say, like, just do what you like. If you like a particular program, pick it, keep going. Next is Jacob's Points and Profits. So Jacob, man, he is crazy life. He talked about how his wife and him many years ago in the podcast, he talked about how they took $50,000 and basically spent all of it in a few years worth of traveling just by booking flights with cash and hotels and these hostels with cash, all for all the travels that he did over the years. And he's been able to travel to so many different countries, and he has a whole second channel dedicated to all. If you look at his channel, there is literally like every city in every country you could think of. Like, I just went through and I named like 30 countries real quick. Like, it was something really, really insane. And then there's millions of cities there, and then all the things they did in those cities. So it's like really eye-opening for all the things he's been able to do. And two things that opened my eyes with Jacob is that, one, he's one that also kind of, him and his wife quit his job to pursue this idea of YouTube and traveling full time. And I would say up until this point, I would say now, like he says, it kind of has worked out. I mean, it doesn't seem like he regrets anything whatsoever. $50,000 is a lot of money. And from what I took from that is that you might be able to even drain a lot of money, and you maybe some people might say that's a bad situation, but the experience and knowledge that they both learned along the way will earn them well over $50,000 worth of value back from just the value they're putting out into the world via the things that they're doing in these different countries, or the points and miles on how to get there. And they have both audience for that. So $50,000, I think, in a couple of years' time will mean nothing to Jacob and his wife. So you kind of think of $50K is the education, no different than college, of using that money for all these travels, so now you could speak about it on a higher level, and you could have that authenticity to say, you've done this, and here's how you can do it too. And I think that's incredibly powerful and always valuable in our space. So I think it just leads a little bit of permission to say, like, you could be upset about certain things, and maybe you think you wasted time or wasted money in a particular way, but all the things that you learned along the way and all the lessons that you learned will aid you in becoming a more interesting and a more experienced and a more valuable person going forward. And if you can help others with those problems, you're going to earn a lot of money in those ways. And I think they're right on the cusp of hitting that as well. And I learned a lot from that. And also that the VentureX Priority Pass lounges can be better than Centurion lounges abroad. I had no idea. Jacob sold me on it, and that's why I'm kind of looking at the VentureX a little bit more now, because he said Priority Pass is better than Centurion in some cases abroad, okay? Not always. So that's great. And then we got, last but not least, we got Key. We have Kiki's Adventures, and she is amazing. 50 plus credit cards in a short amount of time, and she has been able to burn through 5.5 million credit card points in just, I don't even know what the time spent, a few years, and she has a goal of traveling once per month. and she works a full-time job, and she's, you know, she juggles a lot of different things. And every time I talk to her, she's like, oh, I'm just getting back from here, just getting back from there. So the one thing I learned from Key is that Key is has experienced or more than pretty much anybody else in the space. In fact, we look to her as like the arbiter of truth, because she has done so much. And you can go really hard in a particular direction, and you can become that prophet of knowledge for everybody going forward. But the experience you get with 50 plus credit cards and having a goal of traveling somewhere, a vacation once per month, while working a full-time job is insane. And I think it just leads to the greater point of this entire video, which is, what is the credit card points and miles game to begin with? And I think if you ask Key, it's going to be the same answer as I have, which is enhance your life. Enhance your life as much as you possibly can. Do as much as you possibly can, and enjoy as much as you possibly can, because Key will tell you she has traveled, and she has traveled, and she has traveled, and she has amazing experiences to talk from. And burning 5.5 million points, you have a lot of experiences with that. So Key, we just appreciate you and your knowledge and your 50 credit cards and your crazy trips. We just appreciate you being able to give us all of that knowledge, you know, and just drop it. And just, there's so many different things that she has and offers, so many unique perspectives that she has that nobody else has. Like, even just as simple as giving $10 to the flight attendant to get you upgraded to like first class on certain flights, and she does that, and she's like, no one else does this, really? Or just using the points and miles for like baseball with her Venture X or something, for like baseball, because she has a goal of, I think, seeing every stadium in the world, right? Or going, yeah, every stadium in the world. She has a lot of those goals. So we appreciate Keith for those perspectives. And I think the overarching thing for this entire video, the main take home is, if you haven't gotten started in the credit card game, there's no reason not to. This is a list of, what, 42 different people who have done it before you, including myself, I guess 43. And if we can all do it, you can. There's nothing stopping you, whether if you're in debt, because we had people here that were in debt and people who are not in debt. Take the necessary steps forward now. Get started into the game, because the experiences that all of us are having, for compared to the average person, is not even close. The fact that we can all stay and travel to all these different locations month in or year in and year out, most average people who aren't in the credit card points and miles game look at us with three heads and they say, this is not possible. What are you doing? How are you even possible? How are you doing this? And how do you do it? Everything I talked about in this video today. Everybody here has shared their experiences on their YouTube channel, so go subscribe to them if you can, and just get started. That's the idea. Get your cards, be creative, get some points and miles, learn from all these guys that we talked about today, use those welcome offers for outsized hotels and flights for the future, and just have a really good time while we can on Earth, because, again, life is too short. Travel more, as Michael Wong said. So I hope this was informative. I hope everybody loves this. I wanted to do a recap on all of the podcasts, as I'm starting to do a little bit more solo nowadays, and I don't know when the next time I'll have somebody on, and I wanted to recap everyone, all of their experiences, and all the wisdom that I've learned from them, so I can share it out into the world today, so this way you guys have the most experience vicariously through me via them, if that makes sense. So thank you all for being here, if you stuck around all the way to the end. If you did, let me know in the comments below. If you stuck that around to the end, please let me know. It would mean the world to me if you did, and it would let me know that I can do more things like this for the future, and just keep living life, keep having fun, and keep enjoying, okay? So thank you all for being here, and as always, I appreciate every single one of you, okay? So bye-bye.